Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Battle for the Virginia Central Railroad custom multiplayer game. Back in episode number 6, we looked at Thompson's Crossroad, and I was really trying to figure out which side was going to control it because it didn't seem like either side wanted to take that crossing. And really the battlefield had become pretty quiet away from the Bend area and that one objective there. But Kershaw's division seems about ready to kick off a major battle around the Bend. And in this episode, we're going to see what happens. Is the battle going to occur at the Bend, or will something else unexpected occur? Let's find out. Just to help everyone catch up on what's been going on, I'm going to run through all the turns consecutively here real quick, so you can see how these armies have moved up to this point. That is the end of turn number 22, and that is where we left off in the last episode. So let's keep going. We are at turn number 23 now. It is 12 o'clock, high noon in this game. And Kershaw inched forward and is moving into line now. But the window is closing just a little bit as the Federals have began to move into that area to close that gap between their lines. We're going to move now to the 12:20 p.m. turn. And let's actually zoom in on this area right here and get a closer look with what's going on. So here you can see the Confederates moving towards what used to be a gap in the Federal line, but you can see it's been quickly filled in. The Bend area is right there to the south. We got Rhodes's division and Kershaw's division trying to hit the area just to the north of the Bend. Opposing them is the 1st Corps and the 6th Corps. And the reality is that Kershaw moved as fast as he possibly could to strike this part of the line. Unfortunately, he's probably one turn too late, and that just happens sometimes. That's just bad luck. He did everything he could, but the Federals discovered the movement just in time, and they are closing that gap. The Federals, they're probably going to reach that ridge the next turn, and they're going to enjoy the advantage of having the higher ground in those woods. The really interesting thing here, though, is that the position that the Confederates are attacking is directly between the 1st and the 6th Corps. And because this is a multiplayer game and you have two different players controlling these units, that is kind of one of the fun dynamics where when you have that gray area between two different commands, that really is a weak point. Maybe the Confederates will get lucky, but it looks like the Federals have plugged that gap just enough and they're going to be able to hold it. Meanwhile, Buford has just about been wiped out in the north. Buford himself has been captured in the fighting with Stuart's men. That drama has been going on for what feels like hours at this point, but it's just about to end. Well, it is coming to an end for most of Buford's men. Now, as the Confederates have noticed, one of Buford's regiments has escaped for now, but I still believe Stuart will run them down eventually. And what he's talking about is right there, the 6th Pennsylvania Cavalry. They routed during one of the turns into these deep woods, and the Confederates have already been looking all over that area for them, and this is going to be fun to watch going forward because it's really maddening when the enemy routes behind your lines and you simply can't find them. We'll see what the Confederates do here. On the whole, the attack on Buford's division succeeded better than I could have hoped for. The one downside is that Early's division has been drawn into trapping Buford, and therefore Buell's boys won't be hitting with the concentrated force perhaps we might have hoped for. That said, I want Ewell to keep pushing forward. Lee went on to say that, I do think we have some exciting potential opportunities opening up opposite Field's division. I'm pretty sure Hill will send Anderson's division forward, acting in concert with Field. The Yankees there are of lower quality, and we have an advantage in manpower, it seems. And he's talking about this area here, where Fields' division has gone in to shore up the right flank of the 3rd Corps, and I think they see an opportunity to strike the 5th Corps, and they're going to take it. Moving now to the next turn, 12:40 p.m., and the Confederates are indeed attacking with Fields' division. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that part of the map there and get a better look. All along this line, Fields' division has advanced, and Anderson is advancing with them in support. And as you can see, the Federals have no reserves to plug any holes in their lines. And that is just a major error to make. You always have to have a reserve, especially if you're playing on defense. If you're holding a line that's too long and you have no reserves, you're just asking for a disaster. And I feel like that's what might happen here. On the flip side, the rebels, they also have no reserves to exploit any gaps in the Union line. So if Field is able to push through, the Confederates don't have an extra division to exploit those gains. But they do have 3 divisions nearby if they can pull those over towards that flank. We'll see what happens here, but things are starting to shake loose over on this part of the battlefield. Back to the overhead map now, and the Federals, they're starting to get a bit concerned. Chief of Staff Humphreys said to Meade that the 3rd Corps is serving no function at the moment, and the 5th Corps line has no reserves available to resist the developing Confederate attack. If they succeed, they might split the 2 corps and punch a hole in our line. Meade agreed. You make good points. We must call a conference soon to address these issues, or this battle will be over before nightfall. Looking now at the northern part of the battlefield in this area here, the Confederates attacked with Kershaw's division during this turn as well. But the Federals have pretty much plugged up all the holes, and they are ready for this attack for the most part. I don't see the Confederates having much success here. I believe the Yanks have cobbled together a strong enough line to stall Rhodes and Kershaw, and I think Longstreet will pull back if we don't see any routing opposite Kershaw. I think Lee also knows that this attack is just probably a turn or two too late, and it's a missed opportunity, but that does happen. Alright, let's go ahead and move to the 1 p.m. turn now, the end of turn number 26. And the Confederate attacks, though not that heavy, have managed to punch a hole in the Union 5th Corps, and they have routed numerous units back. This is really starting to look like the beginnings of a disaster for the Federal Army. It's at this point now that Meade has called a timeout. He had to do it. Things are just not going well. This is the 4th of the 6 timeouts that the Federals can use on day number 1. Meade began the conversation by saying that, I want to say at the outset that I think we can still win this battle, which in my opinion we have already won strategically, but we risk losing it tactically by superior rebel skills in small unit movements. General Newton then replied that I might argue that strategically we erred in defending the bend while leaving our rear areas unguarded. Once the rebels discover that, they will take them, and we will be unable to dislodge them. If I were Lee, I would send all of Ewell to the west with Stuart and attack our rear areas. Longstreet and Hill would then be charged with holding us in place here. I don't think Ewell will attack south against the 2nd Corps like we might have hoped he would. General Seitz said, although desirous of an offensive plan, I believe that time has passed. The rebels in my front are well positioned, and I should either attack or fall back to the right of the 5th Corps with my 3rd Corps and hold our flank. My unprotected flank worries me at present, staying inactive. Pleasanton also spoke up. We have no choice now but defend our objectives, utilizing better defensive ground. Stuart's aggressiveness caught Buford off guard, and he paid the price. We should now move into a defensive state of mind as they continue to be aggressive. Meade then replied that we need to watch the left of the 2nd Corps. Now that Buford has been eliminated, the rebels will likely move Early's division to strike us there. If not, it may signal they are sending significant infantry and cavalry to the west to get behind us. The 1st and 2nd Corps will continue to hold as they have been. The area around the bend is getting hotter, and we must not lose that position. The 6th Corps will hold where it is, with maximum strength on their left flank near the bend. The 3rd and 5th Corps should work to stop the Confederate attack, now hitting the 5th Corps. You should also continue to hold your position to prevent the enemy corps across from you from joining in the attack on the bend area. Pleasanton will continue to move for Louisa, where he will guard our flank and our rear areas. Sykes then spoke up again to say that my forces will do what they can to stop the rebel attack, but will likely have to shift positions some. We will maintain a presence to keep the enemy pinned, but will also begin to pull the 3rd Corps to the left, closer to the rest of the army. General Humphreys then said that, I believe a defensive posture would work best now. I do wish we had cavalry to send to support the 3rd Corps, but none is available at present. Officers have full discretion to modify their orders based on changing circumstances consistent with the goal of preventing the Confederate occupation of the Bend. Now, just in case you're wondering where General Sedgwick was in all this, he was pretty quiet. He's in charge of the 6th Corps, and they're just smack dab in the middle of the Federal line, so there really wasn't much for him to say other than he'll continue to hold. Now, let's go over to the Confederate side because, coincidentally, they also called a timeout during this turn. This is the 3rd of the 6 that they have to use on day number 1. So for them, Lee began the discussion with, General Ewell is bringing his whole command into position to strike the Union right. General Longstreet has concentrated 2 of his 3 divisions for offensive operations in different parts of the field. General Hill has resolutely held our southern flank. Lee is just recapping the battle as it appears to him at this juncture. In addition, General Stuart has bluffed the Yanks into abandoning an attempt to cross the South Anna at Thompson's Crossing, and has delayed the enemy columns as they have come up, maintaining excellent observation across the battlefield. Longstreet then said that, I am surprised Meade hasn't launched an attack on Breckinridge's division, which is spread out and holding at bay possibly more than twice its numbers. I don't wonder if we are risking too much by thinning our line so much. Ewell said, the enemy has a lot of infantry. Our momentum was spent on attacking Buford. It was worth it, but now the Yanks have a good position and our maneuverability is limited. We may need to find a new plan if we can't break them. General Stuart spoke to say that had the Union crossed in my front at Thompson's Crossing, we could not have stopped them. Good thing they didn't. They fear ambush, but I would have fallen back. I believe the attack with Rhodes and Kershaw must proceed. It seems to be the only place without an entrenched enemy line. It might be our best opportunity. I preferred to try and move around their left flank now and get in their rear if possible. This might cause them to be distracted and weaken their line in other places. I don't think Early's division will be able to help in this. The Union will be ready for it and they may counterattack. I think we have to assume the enemy will take our eastern supply bases since we cannot defend them. We must look to return the favor and head west to capture some of theirs with Stuart, or force me to retreat completely by wrecking his army. The Yankees seem to be digging in and defending as they know we need to attack them to push them back. I am in agreement we may need to fall back where we don't hold advantages and try to outmaneuver them elsewhere. So this is my admin timeout here because, you know what, generally, I love these games. These double-blind games are extremely hard to play, and it really shines through whenever you see these command meetings. Both sides have issues. For the Federals right now, they're pretty flat-footed. They don't have any reserves to really speak of, and their morale is pretty low, I feel, after watching Buford just get pummeled for the last few hours. So they're dealing with those issues. They're trying to play through it, and they're trying to find a silver lining, but the Confederates are making that really hard for them. They continue to dominate on different parts of the battlefield, and they haven't stumbled into any real mistakes up to this point in the battle. And if the Federals want to have a chance to win this battle, they're going to need to find a way to address those issues of not having any active reserves, and also just simply low morale. They need to punch the Confederates in the mouth and get back into the fight. And the lesson here is really pretty simple. In whatever game you're playing, whether it's one of these multiplayer games of mine, or in the game of your own that you're playing against an opponent, never assume too much about how they feel with the battle. Because as worried as you are about your flanks or your rear or what's going on, if you could just get into your opponent's head, I've learned they are just as worried as you are. And in every game I observe, that's been the case. That both sides have the same exact concerns and worries as the other side. And they're usually convinced the other side has it easier. And this game has proven no different. Both sides are still pretty worried about the outcome. So we're going to have to wait and see how all this plays out, but I've enjoyed it. So after their discussion, Lee gave the following orders. We will launch a large-scale attack by Hill's Corps, supported by Field's division. I view the Union right as dangerously overextended, and I want to strike it hard. I want to avoid the Yanks consolidating their right and shifting a corps into Army Reserve. Now, I was just talking a moment ago about how the Federals need to shift some men into a reserve position. The Confederates here, I believe, realized the situation, and they talked it out during their command meeting really well. And Lee's orders here reflect the aggressive nature that they want to take moving forward in this battle. General Lee also ordered a diversionary attack by General Early's division. The aim is to pin down the 1st and 2nd Corps and hopefully keep the 6th Corps sitting on their plateau for fear of what else we might be planning. He also wanted large-scale cavalry raids from General Stuart's forces towards the west, designed to either capture objectives or to make the Yanks panic about holding them. If they start dispatching infantry up there, that's a win in my book. So this is a very aggressive plan here by the Confederates, and they're doing all the right things right now. So my 2 cents here real quick about what's going on. The Federals are pinned down without a mobile reserve, despite having the larger force on the map. And as I said before, if you are flat-footed in these games, you're asking for a disaster. So you might be wondering, how is that possible considering the Federals have more men? Well, let's take a look at this here real quick. So here is the overhead map right now. Obviously, the Federals have a longer line. That is problem number 1. If you're on defense, your line should not be longer than if you're on the offense. That's basic. So that's problem number 1. If you zoom in on this part here, you'll see problem number 2. This is the area south of the Bend objective. And if you are a veteran player, you might already realize what's going on here that shouldn't be going on here. But just in case you're newer to these games or you're kind of confused what I'm talking about, let me show you. I'm going to draw a line here across the Union front. And I'm also going to put the same exact line, the same exact distance, over on the Confederate front. And this line represents 26 hexes, both of them, 26 hexes diagonally. Now, when you eyeball it, you can already see that there's very few Confederate units, and the Federals are just packed into this area. As a matter of fact, the Federals have 14,505 men in 33 different regiments guarding just these 26 hexes. Meanwhile, the Confederate line is really spread out, and they are the ones who are supposedly the threat and are supposedly attacking. Well, they've only got 4,819 men here, 16 regiments. And this is really all about small unit tactics. So what the Confederates have done here is use the every other hex defensive method. What they're doing is trying to maximize their ability to defend this area with as few men as possible. And that is textbook. That is the way that you want to do it. You want to keep your men separated. You want to have artillery to support them. And you want to make it so there are no holes in your line that the enemy can sneak through. This is how you should be doing it. On this part of the line, the Federals, they need to realize that they're defending too hard. And the best way to correct this issue is to pull back a division or more and begin to send them to the 5th Corps to the south to reinforce and help stem the tide there. or, ideally, attack. They should be able to see how thin this Confederate line is. They have a huge advantage in manpower, but they haven't spotted it. I don't think they realize just how precarious this part of the Confederate position is. This is the center of the Confederate line. This is what Lee and his generals were talking about a few minutes ago, about how their center is just so weakly held. This is an opportunity for the Federals, but they just missed it. Alright, back to my 2 cents here real quick as we wrap things up. The rebel plan that they've hit upon is really aggressive, and it should succeed in dislodging the Federal right flank and throwing them back. The Federal right flank, with the 3rd Corps, is held by some of the weakest troops in the Federal Army. They have very few veterans, and they aren't going to be able to resist the Confederate attack if it hits them squarely. I think the key to all this right now for the Confederates is staying aggressive. If they continue to stay aggressive, they're going to be unstoppable. Alright everybody, thank you for watching, I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like on here, and you can also subscribe while you're at it, and you'll get notified when future videos drop on our YouTube channel for the American Civil War Gaming Club. In the next episode, we'll see if the Confederates can break the Union right flank, and whether or not the Federals are going to be able to hold until nightfall. Until next time everybody, just keep gaming.